Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis, big game day edition tonight as the Jets take on the Colorado Avalanche in Denver before coming back to the Peg for a couple games this weekend against the Utah HC and Calgary Flames. The team is on the ice right now as we go live, just after 1 p.m. We will speak with Murat in Denver. We'll get to tonight's game. We'll get to the morning skate in a minute and the way things are shaking out. And then we'll dive into what Murat heard from General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff in a lengthy hour-long sit-down with the traveling media in Denver just past the midway point of the season. Some very interesting stuff there, and really looking forward to having Murat on the program to get to all of that. We're also going to be talking to Scott Oake. Now, normally, if we were speaking with Scott Oake, we'd be probably talking about the Jets and the latest goings-on around the National Hockey League with his work with Hockey Night in Canada. This will be a little bit of a different conversation later on in the program. Scott, of course, who lost his son Bruce to addiction, has come out with a new book called For the Love of a Son, which was released over the last couple days, and they had the big launch yesterday at McNally Robinson. And we'll get into more about the process of putting this book together. It'll be a little different conversation that we normally have talking about pucks and whatnot, but it will be it's an important one. We're looking forward to having Scott on, and we'll do that later on in the show. Before Murat joins us in Denver, though, we're going to welcome in a young man we've spoken to very briefly once before, and that was on the draft floor at the Sphere in June last year. Kieron Walton, who the Jets picked in the 6th round and has absolutely exploded into one of the top scorers in the Ontario Hockey League for the Sudbury Wolves, having a massive breakout season. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. We'll have that coming up a little bit after 1:30 before we dive into all the latest topics with the Winnipeg Jets, as well as the sit-down with Kevin Cheveldayoff with Murat. So buckle up. It is going to be a good one. We are busy today. And we have to get to a hilarious quote from Patrick Laine as well, who sat down with the Spittin' Chicklets guys on Buff's final days as a Winnipeg Jet. So all that coming up and more. Listen, just before we bring in Michael Remis, shout out to everybody with us on YouTube right now. If you're a podcast listener, make sure to check out the YouTube channel sometime and give us a sub. Hit that subscribe button. You can get additional content from Winnipeg Sports Talk on the YouTube channel, completely free. And while you're at it, gang, for those of you here, hit that thumbs up and help let more people know about what we've got going on here on WST. Of course, thanks to the podcast listeners that make us part of their daily routine, and a huge thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our partners at Coolbet Canada just had a fun hour in the lock shop with Dustin Nielsen. Of course, Princess Auto, fansfirst.ca, Wallace & Wallace, Canadian Club, the Winnipeg Jets, Manitoba Battery, Rollies Transfer, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, and we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. As we bring in Michael Remis, Remo, we'll get to everyone that is on the ice today. The big concern that I have been feeling since Monday night and will continue right now until we get some clarity is the status of Captain Adam Lowry, who was not out on the ice today. And that is a very concerning bit of development for the Winnipeg Jets, considering just how important the captain has been for Winnipeg this year.
Yeah, what's going on, Huss? Great to be here on it feels warm out there on this Wednesday.
Relatively.
I swear, last night I was outside. I was like, man, it feels like shorts weather. It was minus 20. I guess compared to minus 40, yeah, it would feel like shorts weather. And yes, the Jets are on the ice, are skating at Ball Arena in Denver. And Adam Lowry not on the ice, and Kevin Cheveldayoff in his conversation yesterday with Murat and Mike McIntyre in Denver saying it's always a concern when you leave the game. It's not one of those late in the third period either. Late in the third period, like where you get banged up, the game is basically over, and might as well take a rest. So we'll see. He is not on the ice. We do have some new look lines without Adam Lowry, which we haven't seen this year. And well, I'm excited to talk to Murat because he was in the room where Kevin Cheveldayoff gave his midseason address to him and Mike in Denver. Did talk about Jonathan Toews, preliminary conversations, saying they would hope to be in the mix. Talked about the deadline. Seemingly, according to Mike McIntyre's X feed, spent a lot of time talking about the Winnipeg Jets' sixth defenseman. So
that's just like the WST chat.
Yeah, just like here. So, try to say, we could try to go, hey, everything's been said here has been said, but that conversation got opened up with Murat peppering the Winnipeg Jets general manager with question after question about who makes the decision on player usage, and Cheveldayoff saying coaches makes the decisions. I've never seen a coach make a decision not with the best interest of trying to win. So lots to get to here today on a lovely, what is it, Wednesday?
Yeah, it is Wednesday. It is hump day. It is kind of funny. Like, we've had so many Tuesday games at home. Like, it just sort of seems like Monday's the day off, Tuesday's the game. The fact that there wasn't a game yesterday, it kind of felt like Monday, but no, in fact, it is Wednesday today. And the puck drop is going to drop at Ball Arena around 8:30 p.m. tonight. And let's just focus on the game tonight, and then certainly we'll get into more of the Chevy and talk about it with Murat. But they have kind of done a little bit of a swap ski here on the right side of the Connor Scheifele line. Alex Iafallo, who was playing with Adam Lowry and Nikolai Ehlers, was skating today with Scheifele and Connor on the top line. And it's funny, Remo, Alex Iafallo has been everywhere. He has played on the fourth line, third line, second line, and top line at different times as a Winnipeg Jet. Iafallo spent a considerable amount of time playing on the top line with the LA Kings before he was traded to the Winnipeg Jets, along with Anze Kopitar, and is a very different player than Scheifele or Connor, but an absolute puck hound. And I think we've seen, with what he's been able to do on the Lowry-Ehlers line, winning battles and getting the puck to some of his more skilled offensive teammates. I'm actually interested to see how this works. Obviously, Connor Scheifele love to play together. They've been dominant at times this season. The numbers speak for themselves. So no Vilardi, though, and Vilardi's been such a key part of that group. Well, where's Gabe Vilardi, you ask? Gabe Vilardi is going to be skating with Nikolai Ehlers, with Vlad Nemetsnikov in the middle on a new look second line. Rasmus Kupari will stay in his spot in between Niederreiter and Perfetti. And it looks like it'll be the Gus Bus in the middle of Morgan Barron and a returning Mason Appleton tonight on line 4 for the Winnipeg Jets. Dominic Toninato, the extra forward. I will admit, I was holding out a little hope that because there was no recall from the Moose, that we might see Adam Lowry tonight, but it doesn't seem like that is the case. And hopefully by the time Murat comes on with us, we'll have a little bit more clarity as to how long the Winnipeg Jets might be with without one of their most important players, and that, of course, is Captain Adam Lowry. As far as the defense goes, Morrissey is with DeMello. Sandberg is with Pionk. Now, today in the skate, Billy Heinola was with Colin Miller, and Hayden Fleury was skating with Logan Stanley. Now, Mike added, this is from Mike, I'm not entirely sure what the third pair is for tonight's game. We'll see who stays on for extra work, and we'll pay attention to Mike's Twitter feed and get the latest from Murat coming up a little later on. But that's the way it looks, and no surprise for a big game in the division that Connor Hellebuck will be going head-to-head, presumably with Mackenzie Blackwood in the Colorado Avalanche net.
Yeah, surprised, and we'll see what happens. We've never really seen a look of the Winnipeg Jets lines without Captain Adam Lowry. He's been a staple there, and Rasmus Kupari with his speed getting a first crack at it. Vlad Nemetsnikov back in the 2C, but this time with Ehlers and Vilardi, I think that's a pretty interesting combination. You have two really strong wings there, and Alex Iafallo has hit the line bingo card been on every single line this year. Almost reminds me of Matthew Perreault. Rick Ralph would call him the human jumper cables. I don't know if the line needs start, but he seems to be that utility guy. You can put him anywhere, third, fourth, second. So certainly a valuable player to have in the lineup. And nice to see Mason Appleton back. Now that third line completely broken up. Adam Lowry, not in the lineup. So Appleton on the right side with Gustafsson and Barron. And yeah, we should note, for Appleton to play, I think they'd have to send down Tornado they have to activate Appleton and Fleury off IR. So we'll see what happens there. Tornado would get sent down, and if they did have to make a call up, which I don't think they do now because Appleton's being activated. Nikita Chibrikov, we didn't mention this yesterday, out long term with the Manitoba Moose. We saw him come in earlier this year and make a big impact with the Winnipeg Jets, having a nice season with the Moose. So he is not an option for the foreseeable future. So interesting line combos here for a team that hadn't changed the lines for so long. They did last week. We talked about Ehlers with Lowry, and now Lowry's out. Put it all in the blender and figure it out, Huss.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, good teams have to find a way to win against quality opponents without important players. And Adam Lowry certainly is one of the most important players on this team. And it sucks right now because it seemed like that line, was really starting to feel it together. They had great analytic numbers, underlying numbers, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, Remis, when going into this game, assuming that Lowry was there, I was very interested to see just how things would look with Lowry, Ehlers, and Iafallo getting the opportunity to go up again when necessary, when available, I guess, without the last change against that Nate McKinnon line. Now, who's going to be out against the Nate McKinnon line, I think is going to be key. I would not be surprised if they went 1-versus-1, which I think is probably part of the reason why they're liking Alex Iafallo to be playing with Connor and Scheifele tonight. And certainly with Velarde, and not only his finishing ability, but his passing ability, it does give an intriguing look on line two with Nick Ehlers.
Yeah, I think so, Huss. It's going to be a tough call. I agree if they did 1-to-1 with the Jets top line against the Avs top line. Iafallo maybe gives them a bit of a boost there. Defensively, you look at the last time they played, it was here on Saturday the 11th. The Jets won 3-0, but going back to the last meeting in Denver, it was the second game of a back-to-back. The Jets won 3-0 at home against Nashville on December 30th, and it was New Year's Eve where, the second game of a back-to-back wasn't there. It was tied in the third period, but the Avalanche did pull away. Casey Middlestad, who's had a rough year for Colorado, he broke the tie and put them on top. So Colorado was kind of rolling at that time. We'll see, what happens tonight. But I feel like the Jets, I have to confirm, but the Jets in Denver, I feel like they have their number at home, but not as much at Ball Arena.
Yeah, and as far as the Avs lately, we can talk about the loss of Adam Lowry. The Avalanche are without Nichushkin. So that's everyone that watched the playoff series last year knows what an impactful dude he can be in the lineup. But it's kind of funny you mentioned that New Year's Eve game because the Avs beat the Jets that day. That was their 5th win in a row. They had a massive comeback against the Sabres in their next time out to win 6 in a row. And since then, they have lost one, lost one, lost one, lost one, lost. So based on the win one, lose one, this would be a win. So the Jets are going to need to find a way to start a losing streak for the Colorado Avalanche. And, of course, they're coming off. This is a big week at home for Colorado in the Central Division. Started off with that 6-3 win over the Stars. They lost 3-1 to the Minnesota Wild, and now this one tonight against the Winnipeg Jets. Will be looking to win the season series if they can get 2 points tonight against Colorado.
Yeah, this is the last game of the year, Huss, between the Jets and the Avs, and I got to have a gripe with the schedule makers here. For a league that makes their playoffs so dependent on division and division races, they got 3 games against Minnesota this year, and you got 4 games against we got 4 against Colorado, but the last one is January 11. I don't know, Huss. The schedule is. I remember they had 3 games against Dallas the other year, and they were all done before December. I don't know. Make the playoff. How exciting would it be if they had a late season game for a playoff spot? But hey, I can't sit here and complain about the schedule. That's what happened
last year.
Yeah, it's like and the Jets won 7-0. That was awesome. That was like the game of the year. Everyone thought the Jets were gonna steamroll them in the playoffs.
Oh, those were good
in the
times.
playoffs
those
too.
Were good times.
That was maybe it is good. Hey, maybe this is good. Get it out of the way. Get it out of the way now. So
the only divisional play the Jets have in the month of April is the second last week of the season. They play at home against St. Louis. They've got a road game in Dallas and a road game in Chicago. That's in April. And even in March, they've got a long, lengthy trip out east. They've got 1 home game against the Dallas Stars on March 14th. And that's it. So they really have played the majority of their divisional play so far this season. 1 game in Nashville and 1 game in St. Louis in the month of February after the Four Nations break. And other than that, it's this week. And I guess we don't really think of Utah as a new team. Utah is in the Central Division.
It's a new team. They're new.
It is a new team.
Look at their record book, Huss. Brand new team. Never played any games before. It's a new franchise, according to the NHL guide and record book, the official one. So they're very new. Never were a previous team at any point. Brand new. They just got plopped down there.
No similarities to a team that played in Mullet Arena last year at all.
No, not even close. Brand new identity, new everything.
Utah's back. It's funny. We were talking a little bit about that tough spot on New Year's after the Jets had played at home on the 30th and gone in. The Jets actually have a very favorable schedule this weekend. They've got Utah here on Friday. Utah is going to be playing, I believe, their third and fourth. Or no, they're on the second end of a back-to-back. They're in Minnesota tomorrow night. And then the Calgary Flames are going to be in Minnesota on Saturday and then back here for a 5 p.m. game on Sunday against the Winnipeg Jets. So, I mean, you're looking pretty good for the weekend. 2 teams that they'd lost to in the past 2 games, you get another crack at. But let's face it, this is the focal point of this entire week, knowing who you're going up against, the history between these teams, and the fact that, as we look at the standings right now, with the Jets in first place, they got 5 points on the Minnesota Wild, although Minnesota has a game in hand. The Jets still 8 points up on Colorado. And, I think that might be surprising to some people. But when you look at the way Colorado's basically played throughout the month of January, it's just been 500 since that win against the Buffalo Sabres. So be a big opportunity for the Jets to get it. And Colorado hasn't been particularly good at home either. Like, you compare their record at home and on the road, it's basically the same. 14-10-1 at home, 14-9 away from Ball Arena. So, hey, if the Jets... Oh, no, I was about to say, no, that wouldn't work. But bottom line, no Adam Lowry tonight, and a little bit of a shakeup within the top 6 that hopefully can bear some fruit for Scott Arniel and his squad, especially considering how pissed off Arnie was with the way the team played Monday night.
Yeah, let's see if he can light a fire under them and they respond. How are they going to respond, Hustler? We will know tonight, or we'll see more of the same as we saw in Utah. I do have to note, Huss, the Jets, I misspoke before, the Jets 7-3-0 in their last 10 games against Colorado. That's regular season. We all remember what happened in the first round of the playoffs last year. 7 of those games decided by 3 or more goals. The Jets have won 5 of the past 6. Pretty incredible. And how about this? Think these 2 teams, think very strong power plays. Yet to be a power play goal this year between the 2 teams. Of course, Colorado has been shut out twice, and the Jets have shut them out in 3 of their last 4 meetings. I guess one of those last 4 is the 7-0 win at the end of last season. So The Jets penalty kill perfect against Colorado, 4 for 4, but getting power plays hasn't really happened. 0 for 2 this year, the Jets power play against Colorado. And Mike was asking some players last year about, 3 of the last 10, they haven't even got a power play opportunity. And you can't utilize this lethal first in the league power play, Huss, if you're not drawing penalties. So how do you draw penalties? Move your feet and work hard and hope that they make some mistakes?
Exactly. I think, it's not a coincidence that on some of the lesser performances of the Jets this year that they haven't been on the power play very much. I mean, sometimes you got to earn those power plays, and certainly I think based on what we heard from Scott Arniel, it has been they didn't do enough of that on Monday. We'll see what happens tonight. Speaking of power play, though, the Jets remain at 32.1%, the number one team in the NHL, just about 4 points ahead of number 2, Detroit, at 28.4. And kind of shockingly, the Colorado Avalanche, with all that firepower, they're 19th in the league at 20.7 for tonight's matchup. When it comes to the penalty kill, the Jets have been moving up. They were kind of in and around 19, 20. They're now 14, tied with Colorado. So it's a push on the PK. Jets have the advantage on the power play. We'll see what that means tonight. I see, Remis, you have some breaking news with a little update from Murat, who will speak to us a little bit later on.
Yeah, Scott Arniel addressing the media a minute ago in Denver. Scott Arniel says that Adam Lowry is out week to week with an upper body injury suffered in the first period against Utah. Time to get all the video sleuths out there to rewatch every Adam Lowry shift. Well, I guess the last one he played, and try to determine what happened. But we do know week to week upper body. So hopefully he comes back soon. He's the captain of the team. He's staple at the third line center that gets second line ice time. So penalty kill as well. So it's certainly a big blow, and they get Nemestikov. Kupari's gonna have to step up, and David Gustafson as well. And the trade deadline is approaching. We don't know how long. He says week to week. We'll have to. Hopefully, it is exactly that and not long term. But you do wonder. We've been talking about the Jets acquiring a second line center, for a while. Does this make it more urgent for GM Kevin Cheveldayoff with Adam Lowry out?
So let's look at this, the potential time without Lowry. If we're talking week to week as of today.
Yeah, the break's coming up too.
We can probably write him off for the weekend and probably next week in Montreal on Tuesday and in Boston on Thursday. As the calendar switches to February, we've got this game against the East leading Capitals on Saturday the 1st. And then 2 more games, both at home. Carolina Hurricanes on Tuesday the 4th. And then our next WST game, the final game before the break for the Four Nations tournament, which is Friday, February 7th. By the way, if you haven't already, we are 4-0. We're looking to go 5-0. Send off Josh Morrissey to the Four Nations. Join us for our next WST night. Go to winnipegjets.com/WST and grab your tickets and join us on February 7th. Based on what they said, Reem, okay, so it's week to week today. Let's say it's 2 weeks. That basically brings you to the 5th. Listen, we're probably talking about dealing without the captain until the team comes back from the Four Nations. I think that's if you took the fact that it's week to week. I'm not counting on Lowry back before Four Nations. I'd love to be wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right. It just seems to make sense where you have that built-in, 2 week period off here. So you're counting about 1, 2, 3. 3 go back to January, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games potential from now until the break. So a big loss, and we'll see how they respond. And I don't know, maybe this does I guess he didn't say yesterday, Cheveldayoff, in the conversation if he was going to have to, do something immediately. But again, he's a captain, plays penalty kill. He plays on second line center minutes. Big loss. And Nemestikov, Kupari, they're going to have to step up and, carry a bit more of the load. And they seem to have balanced the lines a bit more, Huss, to mitigate this.
All right. Well, not great news on the captain, but I guess if he was going to be out for a few weeks, the 2 weeks into a 2-week break might be the most advantageous you could get. Anyways, get well soon, Adam Lowry. My prayer circle did not work apparently, and we'll see what the team can do. I will say this: I thought that David Gustafsson and the guys on the fourth line had a real strong game, and this is a real opportunity. Certainly, Vlad back in the lineup for him to keep doing what he's doing, and he's going to be playing with some pretty talented players in Velarde and Nikolai Ehlers. We'll see what the Kupari, Perfetti, Niederreiter line can do. And, you've got on that fourth line with Appleton coming back, Barrett on the left side, and Gus, I think a pretty hard-working line that can hopefully at least, win their minutes out there and contribute to some wins. It would be great to maybe add in, if the Jets could get some sort of offensive contributions from the bottom six right now, especially against a team like the Avs, would certainly be a help. All right, Murat's coming up in Denver in a minute, but we are going to be speaking with Kieron Walton, who was a 6th-round pick, kind of an unknown player to just about all of us in the draft, but not unknown anymore looking at what he's done for the Sudbury Wolves this year. He's going to be joining us in just a minute. Let me first give a big shout-out and thanks to our friends at Rolly's Transfer. Family-owned and operated for over 60 years in Winnipeg, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. If you've got to move in 2025, get the white glove treatment from our friends at Rolly's. What you're going to want to do is head on over to their website at rollys.com, click on the request an estimate feature in the top right corner, and put in the promo code WST for a special discount for WST listeners on moving services and moving supplies. Let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to go, and the friendly staff of Rollies will turn it around with a great quote for you and get you locked in for the white glove treatment from Rollies. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be transported in the new Rollies Winnipeg Sports Talk truck. Keep your eyes out for that on the road. We're going to do a fun contest this summer for when people spy it out on the roads. For your next move, make it Rollies, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Find out more today at rollys.com. All right, we have a little bit of break in the absolutely Arctic deep freeze, but we're not out of this yet, folks. And maybe some of you have learned the hard way that your battery was not ready to make it through a Winnipeg winter. If you've got battery needs, make it Manitoba Battery, your local option with the best prices in town, period. Beating the pants off the big box stores and the best service around as well, because they'll deliver that battery to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. You can also pop in to either Manitoba Battery location, Logan Avenue, Dovercourt Drive, for a battery test. And if you need one, you can do the core exchange right there, get an even better deal on the already lowest prices in town. For all your battery needs to survive the Winnipeg winter, Manitoba Battery, 2 locations to serve you, also available at manitobabattery.com. And hey, guys, if as we are getting closer to getting out of the summer, some of you are putting the ring on it, getting ready to get married. Many of you are in wedding parties, or some of you just want to get a new look for 2025. The place to do that, of course, is F Apparel at 190 Smith Street, Winnipeg's #1 spot for custom menswear, custom suits beginning at just $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, and more. And great deals and a special discount for you if you want to get the guys suited up for the big day at F Apparel. Pop down and see him in person, 190 Smith Street, or check them out online and book an appointment to come in for a fitting online at F. That's EPHapparel.com. All right, let's welcome in Sudbury Wolves star and Winnipeg Jet draft pick Kieron Walton to connect with him on a great season so far and his very close friendship with previous WST guest and Winnipeg Jet draft pick Kevin He. Here's Kieron Walton right now on WST. Kieron, great to speak with you again. Welcome to the program. How are you?
Thank you, guys. Thanks. I'm excited for this interview. Yeah, I'm doing good. How about you guys?
We're doing well. I mean, listen, it's been a real fun season here in Winnipeg. The team is doing great. Hopefully, you can get a win tonight against the Avalanche after a couple losses, but flirting with first place in the entire Western Conference right now. So things are going well. And listen, for certainly so many of our listeners that follow the team so thoroughly, it's been great to see what so many of the picks from last year's draft have been doing out in the OHL. Just before we get to this year. Let's go back to Vegas. What was that experience like for you? And I know it was quick, and I kind of said to you quickly beforehand, that was the quickest interview we did because essentially everyone was getting kicked out of the sphere, out of the floor, because it was towards the end of the draft, and I don't know, they had some concert that night in turnover. I mean, the draft is always fun. It's exciting. You're waiting for your name to be called. I mean, how was that entire experience for you?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, just going to Vegas itself was pretty cool. I was able to see lots of Vegas and walk the strip and stuff with my family. So that was awesome. But the draft itself, I mean, the Sphere, I've heard lots of things about it, and finally being able to be in there and check it out and stuff was awesome. But it was a good time. Obviously, I was really happy that Winnipeg selected me. Took a little while. I was stressful for sure, but when it was over with, I was really happy. And it was a really good experience all around.
Did you, I can't even remember whether we had a chance to ask you this just because of how quick the visit was after you were picked, but had you, the pre-draft process, you're meeting teams, scouts are talking to you, did you have much of an inkling that the Jets were a team that might be interested in calling your name?
You know what? No, I had no idea. It's funny. So around probably, I'd say January time, I get a couple calls to my phone from the Winnipeg area, but I don't really answer my phone much. So I didn't think anything about it. And then actually my girlfriend said, hey, you might want to call that back and it might be something. So I ended up calling him back and it turned out to be Winnipeg. And so that was pretty funny. But no, I had no idea. I didn't know what to expect, but I'm happy how it all finished up. And yeah, I'm excited.
So you hear your name called. That's at the end of June, beginning of July, and then 2 months goes, and then you're right back here in development camp. That's always the first year after players are drafted, we kind of get to meet them for the first time. They've gone through the summer, trying to get in great shape. Tell us about that experience and what you took out of it as you went back to have a big season in the OHL.
Yeah, obviously it was great, but I just took it work hard. Winnipeg treated me first class. It was great. The whole experience was awesome. Able to go with my buddy, Kevin He, which is nice. Always makes it easier. But it just took work really hard to care of the body. We had a chef there. He was really good. So just main thing was probably just take care of the body really well.
Now, when you finish up with development camp and you go back, you're already drafted. I imagine there's so much pressure in the draft year. I mean, everything you do, you realize it's being scrutinized. You're going to be selected. Now you've been picked. You've skated with some, other peers, top prospects, even some NHLers, and then you move back. How is it different for you going into training camp with the Wolves this year as opposed to the previous year with all the pressure that goes into being drafted?
Yeah, obviously, the draft year, it speaks for itself. I mean, there's lots of pressures on you. You're trying not to get in your head too much. But, I came into this season just really confident in my abilities. We had a whole new coaching staff, which I had lots of conversations with them in the summer, and I was really excited about that. But, I just came in and, time to show what I can do, just play my game. And, I came in with lots of confidence, that's for sure.
Now, and it's shown on the ice. For folks that have not been paying attention, check out these numbers. Last year, just to put it into perspective, in Kieron's draft year, 65 games, 18 goals, 25 assists, 43 points. This year, through 42 games, 27 goals, 43 assists, and 70 points. This is, by any standard or measure, an absolutely breakout season. What's going so well for you this year, Kieron?
Yeah, you know what? I've got lots of opportunity this year, which I'm thankful about. Again, like I said, the coaching, Scott Barney, our head coach, has put lots of trust in me, and I've kind of just taken a run with it. And thankfully, the puck's been going in the net. I got really good teammates to play with. But yeah, again, just playing with lots of confidence, and I've been getting a good opportunity, so that means a lot to me.
Well, certainly making the most of it. And I will say this. I mean, we don't often put highlights up on the show, being more of a podcast, but there's been a couple of highlights for you in particular that that we could not have not shown. A couple end-to-enders. I mean, how would you describe your confidence level is this year with the way things are going as opposed to maybe it had been earlier on in your career?
Yeah, it's pretty high. It's pretty high, just to say the least. I mean, it's pretty high. I've always been a confident player in my ability and stuff, but kind of just seeing the success now and hopefully being able to build on that even more just helps you as a player and makes you, hold on to the puck a little longer, try some new things, and it's been good so far for me.
The team's doing well too, and I guess for junior players, this is sort of an exciting but kind of nervous time as well because the trade deadline just passed. I mean, what was that like in the room with the Wolves? And tell us a little bit about how the team looks like now post-deadline, now that you got your squad moving forward to the playoffs.
Yeah, obviously the trade deadline, it's a sort of a crazy time, but kind of just try and tune it all out. You hope that all the guys are going to stay, but it usually never works out that way. But we traded on Nolan Jackson, the Ottawa 67s, a very good young defenseman for Henry Muse, but I actually know Musey really well. We went to school together as well, and so it was great seeing him again. And we also got Noah Roberts, another really good defenseman, and we picked up a guy from the BCHL with the new NCAA rules. So our team's looking really good, more depth, and I'm excited to see what we can do in the second half.
Now, you mentioned your school. I'm we had Kevin Cheveldayoff a little while ago after his incredible start to the season, and he mentioned that you guys were friends, but fill people in on just how close of buddies you and Kevin he are, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit more of your guys' relationship and starting your pro careers in the same organization.
Yeah, we know each other really well. We're really, really good buddies. I played minor hockey with him for, I think, 4 years. We work out in the summer together, and we skate a lot together. So we also went to the same school in our draft year, OHL draft years. So I'm really close with them. We kind of kept in touch in the OHL. Texting back and forth, and it was kind of crazy that it worked out for both us going to Winnipeg. So that was really cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, we didn't really know this at the time when we spoke to you in Vegas, but I mean, what was it like after you leave the Sphere? Like, okay, I got drafted, and wait a second, one of my best buddies is also drafted by the Jets. I mean, what was that night like for you guys? And just moving forward, knowing that, hey, we're going to development camp together, and hopefully NHL training camps in the future.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. I saw him get drafted to Winnipeg, obviously. They got a steal there. And then I went, then I was picked. And at the time, you're not thinking about it. It's kind of just all the emotions hit you. You're NHL draft pick. It feels pretty good. And then I kind of was like, oh my gosh, I drafted with Kev. That's pretty cool. And then we went to this post-draft just kind of thing the Jets did. And it was really cool. And I ended up seeing Kev, dap each other up. It was really cool. And had a good conversation with each other. And it was awesome. So
now he is having a hell of a season himself. I mean, what was it like, as you're starting off, the year and putting up some big numbers, looking over at the OHL scoring leaders, and well, there's Kev. It seems like both of you guys have just kind of exploded this year, and putting up numbers certainly far beyond where you would expect that guys that maybe were drafted in your spots have been doing.
Yeah, he's a goal scorer. He's a really good player. He is a 200-foot player, but I knew Kev had it in him. I've seen it with him this summer. I see him these ridiculous shots he pulls off. So he's got a great opportunity in Niagara. They got a really good team, and he's. I'm happy to see him having success.
How much do you guys play against each other over the course of an OHL season?
A good amount of times. I think we play each other now 5 or 6 times, and I think we probably have 2 or 3 more, maybe 2, but we play against each other a lot, and it's always good friendly competition. So.
Well, it's a great connection, certainly for Jet fans to sort of pay attention to. And I know you mentioned Kevin. He seemed like a steal. People are saying the exact same thing about you. Listen, you always want to go as high as you're drafted, but I think everyone knows that outside of being the first overall pick, at a certain point, once your name is called, it is about going out, getting better, and doing the work. What was your, once you actually got it done and you're part of the Jets organization, What has the focus been for you to make the most of this year and give yourself the best chance to move forward on the hockey journey that hopefully will end up playing here in Winnipeg for the Jets?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you know what? It's a lot of people say it's not where you get drafted, it's what you do with that, and I've kind of stuck with that. And a draft pick's a draft pick, but it kind of just gives you a little more motivation. I saw 186 guys go ahead of me, and kind of just motivates you a little bit to kind of show some scouts that maybe they messed up and stuff. But I'm happy. At the end of the day, I'm happy with where I went. Winnipeg seems great so far, and I'm really thankful that they were able to take me.
Well, the Jets organization, certainly from what we've heard, seems very happy that yourself and Kevin are part of the organization, never mind where you were picked. And now you're moving on through a great season. You seem to be a guy that this team leans on a lot more, and with a hell of a lot of opportunity. But I mean, the bump that you've had in your production this year, you don't see that very often. I mean, are there keys to it, or did you expect this, or have you maybe even surprised yourself with what you've been able to do so quickly?
No, I've expected it. But yeah, they've been able to lean on me, and you got to take that with pride and wear the jersey every night, and show the younger guys, because I was in that position, that how to play the game the right way. Don't cheat the game. Just work hard going in every night and just do your best. And it's been a good year so far, definitely.
You're a big dude. Like, for folks that haven't seen you, I mean, you're 6'6", I guess. I mean, playing the center position. Is there a player or two that you sort of maybe model your game around after? And is there some areas of your game you're continually trying to improve, knowing that you'll need to make it in the pros?
Yeah. I like to watch Tage Thompson a lot. I think he's just, really skilled and crafty with the puck and has lots of patience. So I try and model that as much as possible. But there's a couple things that I'm focusing on, keeping my feet moving. I like to swing a little bit. I need to work on my stops and starts. And it's such a big body, right? Like, working on being a little more physical and using my body to my advantage, like hitting, separating man from puck, stuff like that. So, I'd say those three things that I'm focused on the most.
How, kids, especially kids that are sometimes, you get really tall early, it takes a little longer to fill out. Like, have you bulked up over the last few years? How long have you been as tall as you are right now? Or is it just like every year you're getting a couple, you need a new bit of everything?
Yeah. You know what? I kind of just grew. I think I kind of grew just steadily. So thankfully nothing that I needed to bulk up too much. I kind of just grew steadily, but it's definitely different. But I've been around 6'5" 3/4 for, I want to say 2.5, 3 years now. So I've stopped growing, I think. I haven't beat my dad, I don't think, which kind of pisses me off. But other than that, I'm happy.
Hey, as part of, the Jets organization, I know you're working with, was it Mike Keane, Jimmy Roy? Tell us a little bit about just contact with the organization throughout the year, what they've been telling you, and, the support you're getting. Yeah,
they've been great. Keener and Jimmy, they've been awesome. We're in contact weekly. They both of them had very successful careers, and they come to a lot of my games and just try and help me as much as possible. If it's anything, if I need some tips on this, or I'm going through something, they're there for me, and they want to see the best player and best person I can be. So I appreciate that from them.
Now, what about the squad right now? I mean, you're sixth right now in the East. It's really tight. I mean, there's a lot of teams within. You're only 6 points out of second, where your pal Kevin is with the Ice Dogs. Now that you guys have made the trades, what's kind of the focus of the team going forward and heading into hopefully a great playoff run? Yeah,
just play good hockey games. We want to get to home ice advantage, so we're going to try and finish top four. I think it's definitely doable. The East it seems like every team went for it in the East this year, so lots of teams really close together, and it's going to come down to the wire for sure. But I'm really confident in the group we have, and I think we can surprise more people like we have been doing all year so far. So,
have you developed a little more of a fun rivalry with your pal Kevin? You guys texting before and after games, giving it to each other, or how does that relationship work throughout the year when you are playing on different teams in the OHL?
Yeah, you know what? You want them to have success until they play you. So that's how it's been the whole year. After the game, it's all buddy. But on the ice, you kind of give it to them a little bit here and there. But it's been great so far, and we play each other a decent amount. So it's fun seeing them.
Well, Kieron, listen, it's been real exciting to kind of follow yourself and Kevin in your first year with the Jets organization. I know a lot of people here in the PEG are going to be sort of pulling for Sudbury and Niagara. I don't know who we'll have to cheer for if you guys play in the playoffs, but that would be a good thing because it would mean both of you guys would be doing very well. Listen, really appreciate the time. Congratulations on a great season so far, but continued success both in the regular season and in the playoffs. And we'll look forward to seeing you back here in Winnipeg for development camp and future training camps. And wouldn't it be cool if one day you and Kevin, former teammates in minor hockey, could be doing it right here in Winnipeg in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Thanks for the time, Kieron.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. A really, really fun conversation with Kieron Walton. A lot of times, you talk to, young guys right after they've been drafted. And there's certainly, they don't seem that comfortable, with interviews. Not Kieron Walton. And as I mentioned, he has had just an absolutely monster season. At 6'6", putting up the points that he has. I mean, we showed a couple of those highlight reel goals that he's had this year. Listen, there's nothing guaranteed, especially when you're drafted in the second half of the NHL draft. But I don't know that there's many young men that were picked in last year's draft in Vegas that have done more to boost where they were drafted to maybe where they fit amongst prospects right now than Walton and Kevin He. And pretty fun that he and he are such close buddies. So we'll see what happens with both of those young men. But anyways, really enjoyed the conversation, and I know there'll be some more Jet fans paying attention to the Sudbury Wolves, Kieron's team, and of course the Niagara Ice Dogs, Kevin He's team. Crazy in that East. There's like 7 points separating first to sixth right now. So he said they're pushing for first place. We're going to get back to the Jets. Murat will join us from Denver, I should say, in a few minutes when he is ready to go. But let's get to some fan feedback. For Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. No fees. That's the bottom line. You go to fansfirst.ca, you click on a game, you're looking what the cost for the ticket is. What you see is what you pay. And for sellers, of which I have been one on a few occasions this year, amazing customer service, great platform. You post it, you know exactly what you're going to be getting, and it is in your account the day after the game. Guaranteed. A lot of good feedback on Kieron Walton. And I see Rat River Rebels saying Kieron definitely stood out in camp. Many people saying what a refreshing kid. To hear lots of comments about Rutger McGroarty. Listen, Rutger came in as a big time first rounder. His media training was second to none. I think we can all agree on that. We all sort of got snowed a little bit by him. This is a very different player. Both he and Kevin He. I believe what a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick. But if offense is what you're looking for, look at the OHL scoring stats right now, and you'll see both of those guys having big seasons right now. So it doesn't. Yes, Winnipeg doesn't leave voicemails. Pretty funny. A few other ones here. Tyson Ducharme cracked me up big time. That he looks like he rides a 10-speed with short shorts. Was that the little short mullet with the Dolphins cap? I'm not sure. And Issue Boy Bruce called it a fixie. It's one of those fixed gear bikes. Aristeel, a good hockey guy from Toronto by way of Sudbury, should know what a great hockey market Winnipeg is. And some other really nice comments. People impressed. And listen, it's one thing to be impressed by an interview. If you've seen what he's done on the ice, you'll definitely be impressed. And tell you what, 6'6" center sounds pretty good to me. Obviously, a long way to go for these young men as they finish playing junior and transition to the pros. But Jets have had some success before in the 6th round. Mason Appleton was a 6th rounder. So a player with that sort of scoring ability and size maybe this could be a real steal in the draft. Keep your comments coming in at Fan First Feedback in the chat. Brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. All right, Murat will join us in a few minutes. Let me give a big shout out to our friends over at Princess Auto. Princess Auto, founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg, proud sponsors of your Bombers, Moose, Goldeyes, and of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk. And Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or Brandon, for those of you out in the Westman area. And of course, no matter where you are, you can shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. A quick heads up to everybody. And I know the guys from the Morton Whiskey Club had been sending us a couple of emails wondering what was up, whether we were going to do another whiskey tasting event. I've got good news, everybody. It is going to be happening again. And this time we're going down the road of bourbon. And what an appropriate night to do it than with the Jets playing the Nashville Predators down in Tennessee. So it will be done with our partners at Suntory Global Spirits and is going to be the Maker's Mark Masterclass with distillery diplomat Micah Dew. Now, we've just confirmed this morning, but I wanted to give you a heads up to mark it down, and as soon as the ticket link is available, we will let you know. But the doors, it's on the 27th of February. We're doing it at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame again with our pal John Waldman. That was such a great event last year. Now, there will be limited tickets for this, and we'll certainly send something out or try to send something out to the people that got them last year. So I know there were a bunch of whiskey lovers in our group, and if you missed out last season, try to make it this time. It's gonna be great. We'll do the tasting beginning at 6 p.m. The doors will open at 5. We'll do a little mingle, and then we'll get the game on at 7 p.m. Try a few more bourbons and whiskeys, and have a great time that night. Now, we will have a ticket link from John at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, hopefully in the next couple of days. But mark it down, combination whiskey masterclass and watch party on February 27th down at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame with our friends from Suntory Spirits. Last year, it was the Canadian Club, which was amazing. This year, Maker's Mark. Really looking forward to that. And hey, big thanks to our friends at Wallace & Wallace for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk, the fencing and overhead door experts since 1946, if you can believe that. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, wood fences, you name it. Leaders in temporary fencing. And if in 2025 you think your home could use a new garage door, make sure to talk to Wallace & Wallace. They've got the largest selection in town, which means one perfectly to match your home and add value to it at the same time. Give them a call, 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will be happy to come down and give you a free estimate. And you can also check them out online at wallacefences.com, wallacedoors.com, or pop and see them in person, Lawson Crescent, just off of Keniston. All right, we are going to head to Denver, to the Ball Arena. And Murat Tesh kindly joined us. Busy couple days for Murat, because, of course, yesterday, Kevin Cheveldayoff sat down with the traveling media, of course, of which The Athletic is a part of, thankfully. And, of course, we got a big game tonight between the Jets and the Avs. So right now, let's go to Denver and welcome in Murat Tesh to join us. Murat, how are you? What's up?
Hey, Huss, I'm doing great. Definitely a busy last couple of days. Lots of news. Story with that conversation we had with Kevin Cheveldayoff went up today. Adam Lowry is hurt. Lots is going on here in Denver, so I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad I've got plenty of stories up to talk about it.
Well, and it's perfect timing, and we really appreciate you taking the time. Listen, I kind of really want to dive into the Chevy conversation, but first let's quickly talk about this game, the morning skate, and apparently our WST prayer circle did not work for Adam Lowry. Apparently upper body week to week. We were just sort of doing the math here, Murat, and unless it is just a 1 week thing, I think there's a pretty good chance that this team is going to have to figure out how to go about their business without their captain, probably until after the Four Nations tournament.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible interpretation of it. At this stage of the game, I'm also thinking that it's probably at least the end of that break in February that Adam Lowry is making his return. To be clear, Adam Lowry hasn't told me that, but that's my interpretation of what's going on. I know there's some uncertainty about the moment of his upper body injury, but I think he's got something there, and I think that it's going to be exactly as long as you're saying. That's exactly my sense of the situation, and that's a bit of a problem.
Certainly a problem because of how important he is to the club. Although I will say this, big picture with where the team is in the standings, if this was going to happen where he was going to miss a few weeks, maybe 2 weeks before a break, if it was going to be something, could be 3 or 4, this might actually be a lucky time for the Winnipeg Jets, so they wouldn't miss more time considering they've got 2 weeks off where he won't be in the lineup.
Yeah, that's a good scheduling bounce, to be clear. I'm reminded almost of, but not all of the way of, when Josh Morrissey got hurt literally, was it the night before the trade deadline in 2019, the Kevin Hayes acquisition year, and Kevin Cheveldayoff was put in a really difficult position trying to sort out, they weren't looking for a defenseman, so who do they get? What do they do? There's quite a bit of scrambling at that time. And the Jets are fortunate here that the timing is different. Yes, we're talking about the trade deadline. Yes, Kevin Cheveldayoff is starting the conversations that will ultimately result in deals in some weeks' time. But Adam Lowry's injury happens with enough time to spare. And that's the best case scenario. Maybe that prayer circle you're talking about actually did some good after all and ideally shortens what could be a longer thing. It gives Winnipeg a chance to get a look at how they survive with Vladislav Nemesnikov and Rasmus Kupari as their middle six centers. There are going to be issues. There are going to be changes. There's already a winger switch to help Nemesnikov with faceoffs with Gabriel Vilardi on his line now. There's a lot there, and help has to come from within before it gets airlifted into the Winnipeg Jets. And like you say, lucky for them, they get a little bit of a break so that they're going to mitigate how many games it actually cost.
Well, we will we'll talk more about what that help might look like based on what you got from Chevy in a minute. But as far as tonight goes, looks like we're going to see Alex Iafallo play with Connor and Scheifele, and a new look second line of Vlad in between Ehlers and Vilardi, keeping the bottom two lines intact, although with Mason Appleton returning to the lineup likely with Gus and Barron. What do you think about the way the top six is shaping up for tonight against a top opponent in the Colorado Avalanche?
Yeah, I think a lot of the shuffle is about McKinnon management, right? The Colorado Avalanche have McKinnon, and they're going to play them in front of Devon Taves and Cale Makar, and that's going to be an absolute unit to try to contend with. So with that in mind, and no Lowry, Niederreiter, Appleton line to work with, Scott Arniel's moved some things around. Iafallo joins the top line, and we can talk about that. Iafallo's two-way play, his forechecking ability, his defensive responsibility. I think they kind of need that because they haven't been going defensively for about a week now, despite a really good season overall. They've had their defensive issues essentially, last 3 games, I'm going to say. There's some real trouble spots. But I think the big thing here is that Gabriel Vilardi will offer Nemesnikov some help on faceoffs, and that's going to be a big part of how Scott Arniel tries to manage those matchups. Vilardi being a right-handed faceoff taker, Nemesnikov left, and Vilardi having just a wonderful season in that regard when he covered for Scheifele earlier. It's possible, because this is the road, that you're going to see that Kupari line play against McKinnon at times too, and so that's going to be a real big challenge. The Avalanche have last change, and so Scott Arniel told us a moment ago, at some point, almost everybody's going to have to play these guys. It's going to be a real mission to be way more defensively responsible tonight than they were the other night in Utah. It's a big challenge here.
Well, and I think back to, the way the team played against Colorado, 10, 12 days ago here in Winnipeg, which really was the first full game we saw Ehlers and Iafallo with Adam Lowry. And the job that they did against the McKinnon line. No high danger chances for the Avalanche in the final two periods. 14-3 in favor of the Jets, and another shutout win for Winnipeg. The blueprint is there, but easier said than done, especially when Jared Bednar is deciding who he wants to match up against who Arniel throws out.
Yeah, 100%. That is an item of concern. Bednar is in control of that, and he knows it, right? Like that's not going to be a secret there. You're right to say that the blueprint was there. You know, you saw that may have been the best defensive game of Nikolai Ehlers' season, right? The challenge that he had playing up against that line as often as he did. That was a really nice turning point for him. It also got him off of that Perfetti and Nemestikov line that wasn't going. So Ehlers has really sort of come back in the last little while. Hopefully he can continue to do that. It also roughly marks, I remember was that the game where in the post game on TV, all the reporters and, all the questions were to Kyle Connor about how well the top line had played defense and how well everything had been going. It's been roughly that moment when some of those turnovers and hope plays and those issues have kind of crept back into their game. So not only are they facing McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen, Taves, etc., go down the lineup, but they're doing it at a time without Adam Lowry, and they're doing it at a time where the Jets' own state of their play needs a real boost for really the first time all season long.
Let me ask you this. Keeping in mind that for the most part, Jared Bednar is at home, he'll have last change. Say the game is tight, well, at any point. The McKinnon line ices the puck, and it's back in the Colorado zone. They can't change, but the Jets can. Who's the optimal line based on what we have here? Like, who do you think Scott Arniel would prefer to have the first shot at McKinnon's line tonight?
Hey, I like that question. And for me, you probably run Scheifele and Connor in that situation. They still have the offensive power, right? And they're used to playing against top lines. And despite my critique of their defensive game in the last week, it's been pretty good on the season. Against this challenge, they should be capable of handling it. They also have Alex Iafallo there. In your very specific case, jumping on an icing, I don't know how long McKinnon's been out there, what the shift length is like. You might even go for one of those temporary bump-ups if Gabriel Velarde is an option that you like, or another offensive sortie. But I think in that moment, that Connor Scheifele duo is who gets the nod.
What do you think about Velarde playing with Nemestikov and Ehlers? Like, Ehlers seemed to really get a boost from playing with Lowry and the role that he was in, which is a little different than before. He's now back with a guy that he's played quite a bit in center, and we have seen that switch. Yeah,
I mean, for me, number one, it's about faceoffs. And Scott Arniel told us a moment ago, he spent most of yesterday arranging and reconfiguring the lines and pairings and all that. I think a huge part is about faceoffs. Nemestikov, not particularly strong there, though he's having a better season overall than his career average. Velarde's also a righty, and that helps. Velarde and Ehlers also do have that stretch from last year with Scheifele, where they were really part of an absolutely dominant line. And to Ehlers' credit as well, in those moments of last game where Mark Scheifele was his centerman as opposed to Lowry after Lowry was hurt, I mean, they created, right? They went out there and they got some stuff done. They got that squeaker from Niederreiter and some other chances. I thought there was a lot to like there. So I don't think Ehlers needs Lowry for his success, as great of a story as that was. It's just going to be a matter of reclaiming chemistry with Nemesnikov that had gone cold while doing it alongside Velarde again. And it's been a while since they've played at length together.
As far as the defense, I know it's the thing that, certainly you guys talked with at length with Chevy was about, the third pairing. Before we even get to the third pairing, a big bounce back needed after an uncharacteristically sketchy night for Dylan Samberg in particular, but the top four overall, I'd say.
Yeah, you can talk about the top four, right? I mean, we'll talk about the third pair. Lots to say there for sure. But when, the goals that were scored, when you have Dylan Samberg making those two plays that lead to giveaways, when he's losing his footing, when there's that much transition play for free with highly skilled players against him. And remember, Dylan Samberg's great story is that he's an excellent all-around defenseman playing in a top four role now, which means most of the time he's playing against those top six forwards of the opposition. It means his giveaway ends up on Logan Cooley's stick for that beautiful no-look goal. That was just an incredible shot. And as opposed to a fourth-line player. And that's that kind of mistake. Yeah, that's going to cost you. That's going to hurt you. And so that was one of the roughest games from Sandberg in terms of those giveaways and the cost of them. Look upwards at that top pair as well. I mean, when the Jets were chasing, I guess it wasn't technically the top pair as we know it, but Neil Pionk makes kind of a bad pass to Josh Morrissey at the offensive blue line. And for whatever reason, you don't see this very much from Josh Morrissey. It looked like he reached to play it with his foot, missed it with his foot. It comes off the boards. And now because his balance is all on his left foot, his right foot was the one that reached for it, he's a step behind and trying to get back. He's effectively not only missed the pass, but taken himself out of the play. And it's a 2-on-1 going the other way. It was also probably one of Morrissey's less effective back checks. And this is a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman, a top 10 in Norris voting for 2 straight seasons, a team captain. Adam Lowry's gone. Nobody will drop the gloves if Stanley's not going to do it. There's some hits. There's just like an element there that other players don't have. I think it's pretty risky to bet on that when you're going to put Stanley on his offhand side. There's going to be some defensive issues that come with that. He was not immune. We're talking about all the giveaways against Utah. He was not immune, right? His giveaway gave Nick Bjugstad a breakaway. And while that's not Logan Cooley making that incredible highlight reel goal, it is a breakaway chance for free, a little mini break that Connor Hellebuck has to save. So it's not as though he should be an auto play, but he is right now for the Winnipeg Jets, and we're going to see him back in there tonight.
You know what? Apologies to people that are with us. It is quite ironic on Bell Let's Talk Day that Bell is driving both of us completely insane with these dropping. In fact, that was not me this time. That was Remis's, if you can believe that. But I think people lost a good portion of that Murat. I mean, I hate to reset it, but just in a nutshell, it looks like Stanley's going to be back in, and certainly from what you heard from the coach, and we'll dive into more of what Kevin Cheveldayoff had to say about this. Kind of the physical role, if you will, is something that they are prioritizing right now.
Yeah, that's the unspoken thing right here. I think that it seems clear that based on some of the play, especially defensively, that Logan Stanley doesn't need to be an automatic decision to be in the lineup whenever healthy for the Winnipeg Jets. But it seems as though that's the role that he has. They pick him when possible, even to the extent of putting him on his offhand side with Hayden Fleury. And it just seems like you're asking for a bit of defensive trouble there. And I was saying, too, that Stanley wasn't immune to the giveaways that happened against Utah. And his to Bjugstad wasn't as costly, but it was as bad as what you saw from some of those other players. This seems troublesome, and I think that the unspoken thing here is the physicality angle. It's on us to change the conversation, and I'd like to do that, but I think that the reason he's getting it is clearly about the physical element that the Jets value, and it may cost some goals at some point. And that's just the reality of these Jets as they're making some decisions. He's still +6 at 5-on-5 on the season, so it's not like he's sinking the first place Jets, but it's a situation where almost every game there's a moment of a grade A chance given up, and it's coming as a result of a play that he makes. That has to be erased either by Stanley's improvement or by Kevin Cheveldayoff's work heading into the trade deadline.
I mean, I've said this a million times. I have a lot of time for the physical element of the game. I'm just not sure that they're getting that. Like, if this guy was a killer out there that was intimidating everyone and doing that, you could probably learn to live with it. I'm just left wanting a lot more on that side of things. But listen, we'll get into the Chevy conversation because I think a lot of it involved Logan Stanley and some of that depth defenseman. But first of all, fill us in on where did you guys meet? What was the format? I'm interested to kind of get a bit of a picture of how this went down.
Yeah, so it was at the Jets Hotel, which is, a few budget classes above what I stay in. So I made a walk through downtown Denver and met Gregor Boer of Jets PR staff there. Mike showed up and he took us up to sort of a conference room So if you can imagine one of those hotel type conference rooms with a bunch of round tables everywhere with tablecloths and all that sort of stuff, we were the only ones in the room. It was Chevy, Mike, myself, Gregor, and then also Mitchell Clinton sort of sat in, though it wasn't like for like he wasn't asking questions, and I don't believe he wrote off of the results. I don't think he took recordings or anything like that. But that was the five of us, I guess, sitting at one of those round tables. And Huss, like, I know Chevy has a reputation for being just circle speak and doesn't say much, especially when at the podium at Matt Frost. And so as much as I feel for folks who weren't able to have the access to be there, Chevy in a small group situation with Mike and I asking questions, opportunity for clarification, little back and forth, some jokes. It was absolutely a wonderful conversation, even when it got challenging. And like the three of us saw each other in the hall just about 10 minutes ago and all agreed, like, wasn't that a great way to do it? And Chevy felt the same way we did. So it was an ideal version of a Cheveldayoff interview from my point of view.
Well, you know what? That is awesome. And listen, I understand why they did it. And I will just say this to me, not as Winnipeg Sports Talk, but just as someone that wants as much information on this team as possible. There's a reason why I will always subscribe to The Athletic and the Winnipeg Free Press, because in today's climate, it is not easy to have people on the road. And, we are very fortunate to have an independent paper, and obviously yourself with The Athletic doing what you're doing and being boots on the ground in places like this for this. So important to support our journalism if you want to keep this sort of stuff continuing and moving forward. So let's get to some of the topics that you covered. First off, I'm not sure if this was the first thing.
Man, now I think Hustler got bounced. We've had these internet issues. Oh my God. Okay, so we've had these internet issues for the last couple of weeks where for me or him, it just goes out for a minute and then comes back. He'll be back in a minute. I'll let him. He probably wants to ask all the questions.
I'm sure. Yeah. Are we presently live? Our little chat?
Yeah, we are. We are still live. Yes, we are still live. I'll wait for him because. Yeah. I mean, he's gonna want to get into the questions. He just texted 100%. Me now. I know he's gonna. It comes out here. I'll put my scroll. It comes for a minute, and then we go. So I'm gonna make a phone call after this because I haven't. We haven't done anything. We've been doing this almost 4 years. Never had anything like this. Maybe like once in a couple months, you'd go. It wouldn't work. And now it's like every day. Like there's these outages. I don't know if it's because it's minus 40 outside here, or minus 20 now. But now it's getting frustrating. Especially it's always. The pairings. Do you think? Okay, he's back now.
So
here we go.
This is driving me absolutely nuts.
I'm getting mad now too.
Yeah, we could have some rants at the end of today's show. We'll see. Murat, if you didn't have the opportunity already, what was the question about Jonathan Toews, and how did Chevy kind of describe their interest and the possibilities based on what he's hearing of Toews even coming back?
Yeah, as I remember it, Mike was the first one to bring him up, and the question was just like, would the Winnipeg Jets be interested in Jonathan Toews? And Chevy said, well, he's an unrestricted free agent, so we can talk about him, right? He's not somebody else's player right now. And he took a really warm tone to the idea. He said it would be a great fit. He said the Jets would love to have that conversation. He said that he's been in touch with Toews representatives. Said it had been a little while since that they'd last spoke, but that this is an ongoing bit of communication that they're having. And he would love it as a chapter of Jonathan Toews' career as well. Not that Toews needs another championship or something to that effect, but Cheveldayoff's perspective was the homecoming could be a really sweet story. And I mean, he also took a moment to clarify, right? Like some of this is far away blue sky thinking. Toews is seeking to make his NHL return, but he's coming from a long way back. A lot of health issues. He turns 37 this spring. The fact that he's trying clearly means he's on a good path, but he's really going to have to push his body, Cheveldayoff said, and then see how it responds. Can it handle the rigors of NHL-type practices and all that sort of stuff? So Toews' return seems likely-ish, but it's also more of an if thing than an absolutely when thing, if that makes sense. But I did ask, okay, so if that takes a little while and it's September and now he's making his return, are the Winnipeg Jets interested? And he didn't shy away from that either. I think this is a player that he would really like to have on board the Jets.
You know, they've got a prior relationship. And I mean, listen, if you can get Jonathan Toews, you know, with what he brings to the package on the ice, off the ice, the leadership, the experience as well for a team that, you know, frankly could use some experience with positive results in the playoffs, it does seem like it would be a no-brainer for the Jets to be involved in, you know, discussing. And he did mention that the story itself, not that that would be the reason for him coming back, does almost write itself, Murat.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of Winnipeg-born and bred elite NHL athletes who could probably handle the scrutiny of playing in the hometown, right? Like it's not necessarily as easy as it might sound, right? I don't think Cody Eakin came in and blew the doors off or had the best experience here in Winnipeg when the Jets acquired him, as an example. But I think that Jonathan Toews is built a little bit differently than that. Certainly when he's playing and at his peak, he was a much higher caliber of player. He's also won just about everything under the sun: World Juniors, 2 Olympic golds, 3 Stanley Cups, a Conn Smythe, a Selke Trophy, a Mark Messier Leadership Award, and the cup that they won together in 2010, I know is marred for some people by the Kyle Beach incident and the Blackhawks' inability to properly protect Kyle Beach in that situation. I don't think that that's necessarily a factor playing into any of the conversations Cheveldayoff and Toews representatives are having. I think that the view on all those guys' part is that it would just be a real sweet homecoming, and that if Toews is playing, it means that Toews has found a level of on-ice ability that satisfies somebody as driven as he is.
Yeah, that is key. Like I've talked to some people that, you know, have a connection with Jonathan, and I mean, this is not a guy that just wants to come back for the sake of coming back and, you know, playing a little bit more and saying, well, I didn't end my career the way I did before. I mean, the goal would be to come back and be Jonathan Toews and be able to help teams win hockey games and, you know, potentially do something special. So that's one little possibility, a unique possibility that is out there, far from a sure thing. Even if he's going to make a comeback, whether that's this year or in the future. So let's talk about the short term right now, the trade deadline. And I laughed when I was reading your article in The Athletic in the takeaways that he may hate the term, but he is all in this season. It is something that fans and media use all the time. Well, this team is all in. I think that they would say that they're all in from day one of the regular season each and every year. But the fact of the matter is this is a first-place hockey club with some clear needs to truly take it to a spot that I think that they can truly flourish and be a tough out for anybody in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I think that's legitimate. And I'll make Chevy's argument for him a little bit here. It's purely semantic to me, but for him, it would be about all the time he spends on trying to build the Winnipeg Jets out to be a winner. And his point about hating the term all in is that for him, all in isn't just the moments where you go out and acquire players at the trade deadline or otherwise. It's not just that splash moment. His point is that there are a lot of hard decisions that happen throughout the season, in the off season. And sometimes they're about letting players go. Sometimes it's about which amount of money do you give which player. You know, they could have signed Cole Perfetti long-term to more money if that was their interest, but they didn't. And now they have more cap space as a result. Is that going to hurt them later, the way that Velarde is about to get an enormous raise? All of these decisions for him are part of what make a team all in. He says every difficult decision constitutes that. Okay, I think we understand that. And the Winnipeg Jets are in first place in the Western Conference. Every time that they've had a team of this quality or caliber, they've put chips in the table. They acquired Paul Stastny in 2018, Kevin Hayes in 2019, Monahan, Toffoli, Miller last year. Those are the three best Jets teams other than this one in 2.0 history, and they added every single time. Not only that, but they arrive at this moment, and there's going to be some foibles cap-wise because Lowry's injury may mean that there's another player called up, and there's going to be items there. But they project to get to deadline day able to add $11 million worth of contracts. That could be a top 6 forward and a top 4 defenseman, depending on what's happening. And so Chevy himself yesterday said there's opportunity cost that comes with that cap space now. Do you make one move? Do you make two moves? Do you go small here and big there? And when he's putting those ideas front of mind, and when that's the discussion that he's having with us, it's definitely the one he's having with his management team, with Larry Simmons, with all the pro scouts. They're taking a good long look at how they can make the Winnipeg Jets better. And I have no reason to think that they won't use all 11 million or close in their efforts to do so.
One of the things that is, in addition just to losing Adam Lowry, your captain, and how important he is, one of the things that really sucks about the timing of this is that we were starting to get a bigger body of work for Lowry, Ehlers, and Iafallo together, assuming that the top line stays with Gabe playing up with 55 and 81. And I was intrigued in that. And again, maybe this all goes back to that brilliant performance against Colorado. But if all of a sudden you can have a shutdown line that includes a Nikolai Ehlers that's adding a little bit more offense, what does that do to your need at, quote, 2C? Or, can you maybe get a tweener, sort of a middle six guy that could come in, boost the depth of the center position, but give you more assets to potentially use for the blue line? And unfortunately, based on what we've learned today, they're probably not going to know that. But did you gather anything about the true targets, about where in the lineup that Cheveldayoff would be looking for? And has anything changed based on the season that Adam Lowry's had and what they've seen as of late?
Yeah, great question. And I did ask about exactly that. Exactly. Like, do you see the same holes that I see? And I listed that second line and the idea of a center or a player that can make that an impactful line. And as well as I mentioned, sort of help on top 4 defense. And Cheveldayoff didn't necessarily shoot down those ideas, but what he said was that, yes, that's a good question, but maybe a better question is what can the market provide that actually fills those holes? What do the actual plugs look like that are available for those holes, whatever they may be? And I think his point is this. We can look around and say that the Jets, even with Adam Lowry, let's say that they go back to the Appleton and Niederreiter version of the Lowry line. Even in that situation, you need an upgrade, I think, at second line center. They certainly felt that way in acquiring Sean Monahan last year, and I feel that way again now. That wrinkle you're talking about with the Ehlers line, that gives them options. I was hesitant to believe they'd keep it heading into playoffs, but we'll see. But there seems to be a hole there. But does the market provide the answer to that? Because I can talk about Brock Nelson and his 16-team no-trade list. There's a chance, I think it's 16, there's a chance that on Long Island, if he gets asked to waive and there's a deal consummated, he might not. There's also a chance he's not even as much on the market as all the trade boards would lead you to believe. And that was Cheveldayoff's point too, is that right here and now, we can point to these holes, and he's not denying that they exist. He's not, every roster has its flaws or its opportunities for improvement. But the conversations he says he's having right now are at 30,000 feet, planting seeds. Teams will decide between now and probably 4 Nations and after 4 Nations, are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to be sellers? Can they keep their own rentals, like Nikolai Ehlers might be for Winnipeg? Can they make other moves? And a lot of that clarity isn't there yet. So I think, and Cheveldayoff spoke to us probably knowing the Adam Lowry situation, despite not providing an injury update. So I think, I don't think that anything he said to us yesterday necessarily changes. I think a middle 6 type center, I think help on defense, ideally with some physicality, those to me sound like and continue to make sense as sensible additions for the Jets.
Well, and you know what, it's funny you mentioned the blue line and the physicality. I mean, certainly the blue line, while performing, I think, beyond most people's expectations for the most part this year, certainly has room for improvement. But before we even talk about those holes, I did chuckle that there was so much talk about Logan Stanley in this conversation with Chevy because it kind of resembles what a lot of the social media posts and what the chat is like on a daily basis. Fill us in just on the chat surrounding one of the more polarizing players on the hockey club and the big guy.
Yeah, I think Mike brought it up first and sort of tiptoed into the idea that like this is a player that we can't help but ask about because our day-to-day life involves so many questions and criticisms and concerns and support, but lately more criticism for sure about Logan Stanley. And he is a polarizing player, and he is somebody who all the debates are there. So we're here to be the voice of the fans. I said that, and like sort of take that, translate it to a conversation with the general manager and see what he has to say about it. I think Cheveldayoff at first wondered is this more of a social media thing? I think he asked, like he referenced Twitter and to that effect. But we clarified that, like, no, it's well beyond that. It's in the comment section at The Athletic. It's in the chat, on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I have a two-part mailbag where the second part is going up on Friday of this week. And the number one question with a bullet by a mile, Logan Stanley, right? Like this is
Murat,
a issue.
Just to quickly mention too, and something that I can't remember ever happening before, but it happened in the building. I mean, the 6-0 game where there was that turnover and the guy went in and scored on Connor Hellebuck. Like I was in the upper bowl of that game, and I have never ever heard the amount of vitriol in a game where the team was beating the daylights out of the other squad about a player that happened that time. I mean, there were some, and it wasn't a lot, but there were some, was literally chanting his name like you would the opposition goaltender to get on him. And we talked about it on the show. I mean, it was a little unnerving, I think, and I think kind of a below most Winnipeg fans. But the bottom line is it's not just, now maybe a lot of it kind of starts and that's where the gas is poured on. But the bottom line was, I mean, we were sitting in a game where the Jets win 6-1 and you go into the concourse afterwards and half the crowd is bitching about a play made by a guy that has become a real lightning rod, if you will.
100%. And I think that, so Mike did mention that, I should say too, as a follow-up to this social media comment, is that it happened in the building. Jets fans in the building. And I think that maybe that's what opened things up a little bit more because we did speak at absolute length about it. I think Mike's first question was, once we landed on the topic, was about, has he ever told Scott Arniel that this is a guy that you need to play? No, he unequivocally said, no, that's not his job. And one of the things that, I made a point of asking, what we had to sort of circle back to this was, the general manager has a role in player usage, and it's not the same as the head coach's role. And I mean, I guess Logan Stanley critics will be happy to know that, I did the listing. I did the first round trade. I did the, Declan Chisholm, the Jonathan Kovacevic, the Dylan DeMello, Mason Appleton exposure to the Seattle expansion draft, and mentioned all of those things, sort of saying that, like, hey, you have a role in this too. And Cheveldayoff then spoke for over a minute. It was impassioned. I think I have almost the entire quote in my story today at The Athletic. Like, it was in defense of Stanley while acknowledging Stanley's flaws. And also he got into sort of development and timelines and how some players can stall and all sorts of things. So I really, really recommend people read the quote in its entirety with some context at the piece. But like, you're right. We spoke about this player at length. That is, we were talked to Chevy for over an hour, and maybe Stanley was 10 minutes of that.
It was interesting, and everyone's forgot about the COVID season and, playing within the Canadian division and all of that. But he did reference Stanley's role throughout the playoffs at that time, especially in that sweep of the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, I bristle at that. I absolutely positively bristle at that. The reason that I do is because this isn't hindsight thinking. It was during that season I was asked about Logan Stanley's ceiling as an NHL defenseman. And at that point, he was 23 years old, a little bit on the upswing. He'd had a good training camp. He was moving the puck well. And I did the deep dive. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of research on this stuff based on what age a player makes his NHL transition, the type of points he's produced at various levels, the league that he's come from, all that sort of stuff. It's all there. There's a lot of good analytical work on it. You can combine that with the fact that I then looked in this Canadian division with Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews and Brady Tkachuk in it. Who did Logan Stanley play against? And I break it all down in this piece written during that season where Stanley is meant to have excelled in the playoffs and have been on the upswing as a prospect. And to the Jets coaching staff's credit, which is just a smart thing to do with a 23-year-old developing defenseman, it yielded good results. They kept him so far from elite competition. I break down in the mailbag piece from 3 years ago, I think it was, all of the people he played substantial minutes again, and there's not a sniff of a top 6 player on it. So to sell a Hellebuckian excellence sweep against the Edmonton Oilers as Stanley playing a substantial role in that is a stretch to me. I know he scored goals in what I would like to think of as garbage time to delay the sweep against the Montreal Canadiens, but I also think that hanging your hat on that, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. I think Cheveldayoff's point may have been that, look, based on what we knew at that time, it was worth holding on to this player. There was development ahead of him, and we had seen good results. If that's his point, that let's make space for that. I just think that even at the time, those contributions were oversold and are oversold in hindsight.
I know a lot of the talk was about Stanley, but it's tough to talk about Stanley without the other defensemen in the mix. And in particularly Ville Heinola. Did you have any takeaways about Ville in that same conversation about, that kind of 6th spot on the blue line?
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll remember that Stanley season, the All-Canadian division, Ville Heinola went a month without playing in the AHL or NHL. He was stuck on the taxi squad. It's been a developmental issue there. But the things that I think people would be curious about on Ville Heinola, it's not like we had a deep dive conversation about him, but when talking about Stanley, Cheveldayoff also referenced, well, sometimes guys get hurt. And this did happen to Logan Stanley consecutive seasons, right? Where he missed some time due to foot injuries. That sets development back. And he said, well, also look at what's happened to Ville Heinola for the last 2 seasons. The ankle injury and then the infection that then exacerbated it. Consecutive training camps he missed, right? And missed substantial time. So he pointed to Heinola as an example of we need to be patient with these guys. Everybody, especially when they've gone through stuff like that. And the thing that he said, maybe for the first time, and again, full quote, full context, full everything in the story, but he acknowledged that, you know what, we had to make some tough opportunity cost decisions. After that year where Stanley made his emergence and Heinola went a month without playing, well, the Jets' takeaway was we need to upgrade our defense urgently. And they also were talking about their culture at the time. So in comes Brendan Dillon, in comes Nate Schmidt. Well, that pushes guys down, and that's part of why Ville Heinola hasn't got the opportunity that he has. It's not the whole story, but it is part of that. And I don't think Heinola's knocking it out of the park right here and right now either, but at 23 years old, a moment ago I said it made sense to have patience with Logan Stanley at that age. Makes a ton of sense to have patience with Ville Heinola here and now at this age as well.
Based on that, with what they have right now, the talk about those young players and the goals for this team, what do you think they are looking for right now, and how aggressive will they be in particular on the Jet blue line before the 7th of March?
Yeah. Now, it's possible that I've read this situation wrong, and it's not all about Logan Stanley's physicality, and there's some other elements to the game, like because they play him as a third pairing defenseman and a second unit PK player. It may be that they believe his size is going to help them win playoff battles, or to things that are not necessarily about the pure physicality. But I think in terms of trade deadline additions, you're probably looking at a defenseman who can play either higher up the lineup than Stanley is, or with more experience that will play his third pairing job better than he does in an all-around capacity, defensively and in transition, while also bringing that physical element. And, a guy that they've been interested in before, a guy I believe they're interested in now, a guy who's completely resuscitated his career, and I think makes sense to talk about despite some lows in Buffalo once upon a time, is Rasmus Ristolainen. He's resuscitated his career in Philadelphia. I talk to people out there from time to time that have me convinced that he's been a completely adequate number 5D for them, sometimes a number 4, who can play a much smarter, less hit-chasing game than he used to do when his defensive numbers were horrible. And so that's the type of player that I'm thinking about, whether it ends up being Ristolainen or otherwise, that could help push Stanley out of the starting playoff six while not necessarily giving up on the physicality element that the Jets seem to be prioritizing.
Gang, you got to get to The Athletic. I mean, it is a long read, but it is a great one. It goes into so many elements of the conversation and the big picture of the Winnipeg Jets. The one other thing, Murat, I wanted to quickly ask you about is that while we all focus on this game tonight against the Avalanche and the trade deadline on the March 7th and what's going to happen in the playoffs, the general manager's job is much more than just what is happening in the here and now. Big decisions to come when it comes to RFAs, UFAs, and a certain guy that's on a 45, 50 goal pace that is going to have one more year in his contract. I mean, if you can, just give us a little bit about the what you asked and what you heard from him on Ehlers' future, Neil Pionk's future, some of the RFAs, and then, of course, Kyle Connor the following year.
Yeah, the short of it is, despite probably having enough cap space this year to make it happen with the cap increasing, Kevin Cheveldayoff doesn't foresee being able to sign all of Winnipeg's unrestricted free agents. He was pretty clear about that. You know, you can look at Ehlers, Pionk, Nemesnikov, Appleton. Which one am I missing? Iafallo, pardon me. Yeah, absolutely. You can go through those 5 particular players and say at least one of those is not going to be back next year. In terms of probably the one that people are most focused on right now in Nikolai Ehlers, he sort of said that, he said that he would absolutely love to lift a cup with Nikolai Ehlers, that share that championship, that he's watched him grow up, that, you know, he almost feels like a parent because it's been 10 full NHL seasons, 11 seasons since he was drafted. There's a lot there, a lot of history there. He's very proud of what Ehlers has accomplished to date and is still accomplishing in his career. He also said the business side is the business side, and we'll see what happens there. That story is still being written. I continue to think it's less likely for him to be back Ehlers next season. That doesn't mean that that's absolutely what happens. That's just the sense that I have at this moment. I wonder, let's just put this out there. Kevin Cheveldayoff did not suggest this. This is my idea based on vibes, let's say. What about a sign and trade when the season is said and done, where Ehlers signs something long-term that helps Winnipeg get better value for the asset on the way out? Men's fences, not that fences need mending, but it maintains relationships, does the Jets a solid, gets Ehlers to a place that he ideally wants to go. I'm not saying that that's a likelihood exactly, but I just can't help but think that there are contingencies beyond what we see right this second.
You know, and just quickly on Pionk, I've got a lot of time with what Pionk has done. He seems to fit in very, very well within the culture of the team. He's playing big minutes. He's had a big bounce-back year from last year. But along with having a bounce-back year and putting up a bunch of points, the price goes up. And I'll be honest, I have seen, you know, your estimates and some other estimates, and as much as I am a fan of Neil Pionk, and I like him, I'm not one of his big critics, excuse me, there was some serious sticker shock when I saw what that price of a potential, a guy that has been playing top 4 minutes, right shot defenseman, you know what a premium those guys are, and keeping Neil Pionk could be a real challenge as well.
Yeah, 100%. He's earned that, though. It's interesting. There's chaos to his defensive game, so you don't always feel safe that he's like part of your shutdown unit in the top 4. At the same time, he plays an enormous role for the Jets. His minutes are high. I think it's over 21 minutes a game right now. Do I have that right, or am I thinking of a different player? But his minutes are high. His point production is high, and he plays on that right side. So I think that he'll command a bigger price than fans are necessarily comfortable with. Does it get all the way as high as the projections say so? I'm not that sure. I think that there are other factors at play as well. Pionk sees Winnipeg as home. It's close to where he grew up. He's raising a family, all these sorts of things as well, right? Like there are considerations outside of the maximum literal dollar figure. But even then, I know that there are fans who would be concerned if he re-upped it the $6 million range that he's already in. And believe you me, like whatever your concerns are, he's getting a raise from that. Could it be, because Cheveldayoff has been particular in the past, that there are certain players that he likes at certain price points but will let go. We've seen it with Myers. We saw it with Murat, right? Like, he liked those players. But at certain prices, sometimes guys earn the right to play elsewhere. And it may be that Cheveldayoff is unable to retain Pionk and has to come up with some different solutions.
Murat, this was phenomenal. Thank you so much for this. This was, I think, we were all really, really interested to hear from Kevin Cheveldayoff, and considering the way that this was done with the Athletic and with the Winnipeg Free Press on the road. Could not have had a better guy to come in and give us the lowdown on the sit down with the general manager as we go into this one tonight. Enjoy the game. We'll look forward to your coverage from Denver. Have a safe trip back, and we'll see you at the rink. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks, Seth. Thanks very, very much.
Oh, that was great. Murat Atesh, subscribe today if you haven't already. Theathletic.com. It is all there right now for you. A very, very long read. Murat, really got into it. Jets trade deadline plans. Interest in Jonathan Taves. 5 takeaways from general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff from Denver from his midseason address yesterday. Let me just put this why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray out to the chat. What was the most interesting thing that you got from our conversation with Murat, or I guess in some ways what Murat got from Cheveldayoff? Interested in your thoughts on that. Let us know, fan feedback in the chat right here for those of you on YouTube. And for those of you listening on the podcast, hit us up on X at Sports Talk WPG with your thoughts. I'm sure we'll have some more to discuss on this tomorrow on Winnipeg Sports Talk. It was great stuff for Murat. I'm a little hoarse right now, getting a little sick. Let's do a quick cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
Train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, great stuff from Murat. Lots going on at Boston Pizza. Congratulations to Brett B., who won that grand prize, Boston Pizza trip to Boston. Brett's headed to the TD Gardens in Beantown to catch that big rematch between the Jets and Bruins after the 8-1 thrashing the Jets gave Boston earlier this season. He's also going to be checking out the Celtics versus the Bulls. But next up is Boston Pizza's Hockey Holiday. Watch the Jets in the NHL at BP, and you could win a trip for 2 to see the Jets in Vancouver on the West Coast this March. Order an ice cold Molson and visit your local BP to enter. And, of course, this weekend, conference championship games in the National Football League. And someone is going to have their weekend made. The grand prize party for BP's NFL program is at BP Taylor this Sunday, where someone is going to win an amazing trip to Vegas. And don't forget, if you need to fuel up on some hearty pastas on these cold winter days, it's Pasta Tuesday all month long at Boston Pizza. BP's Tasty Pastas are on special every day in January, starting at only $11.99. Jambalaya fettuccine for a few bucks more. Check out Pasta Tuesday every day this January, only at Boston Pizza. And tell you what, I'm quite interested, based on everything that we've been talking about, but also what Kevin Cheveldayoff had to say to Murat, as to the new players that we might be getting Jets jerseys for over at Royal Sports. Now, celebrating over 50 years in business, family owned and operated right here in Winnipeg, is your absolute number one spot for literally everything sports related. Whether you are looking for a new Jet jersey in one of the many variations they put out with the name and number of your favorite player or one of the newest players on the team, hats, hoodies, sweaters, something to keep you warm, great bomber gear, gear from around the National Hockey League, not to mention the NFL as well. Royal Sports has it. They are the hockey superstore with everything from full equipment, goalie gear, right down to skate sharpening and stick tape. And don't forget, if maybe you're not a hockey player, but you've got someone that just casually wants to skate the river trail, some more affordable skates as well. You can find those at Royal Sports. And while you're there, check out all the cool stuff on the Kings Skate, Snow, and Surf side. Amazing gift ideas with things like their Big Yeti section, Herschel, and the top brands and more. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Give them a follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for their latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right. We've talked a lot of hockey today, and normally we would be talking hockey with our next guest. But Scott Oake, legendary sportscaster here from Winnipeg, has a brand new book out discussing the battle of addiction of his late son, Bruce, the Bruce Oake Recovery Center, and much more. Let's welcome in Scott Oake right now to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Scott, really appreciate it, and congratulations on the book and the big launch over the last couple of days here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, got a lot of reaction, mostly positive. Well, all positive, I guess. Who's going to criticize me at a book launch, right? By the way, the title of the book is For the Love of a Son, and it hit shelves yesterday. You can get it at bookstores anywhere, I guess, and we're very pleased with the early progress.
You know, it is the story of the loss of Bruce, and you know what you've done after his passing, establishing the recovery center. It has been, the story has been told in some ways. I mean, obviously, it was a news story for a while as to where this would be, how it could come be. Tell us about deciding to put this into, in some ways, a memoir of the entire journey.
Well, I'd never really planned to write a book. What happened was I got a call from a book agent who asked if I would be interested in writing a book about my career. My answer to that was, not a chance. I'll write a book about my career when everyone I know in the world is dead. So call me in 2058. But to be serious, I said no because there's probably 20 guys in this business who have had more prolific careers than me who haven't written a book. So I wasn't about to subject anyone to one from me. I did, though, have an appetite, as the conversation went on, to have an appetite to tell the story of Bruce and establishing the recovery center, and that's how the book was born.
You know, it is a topic that, once you dive into it, really kind of touches everybody at some point, whether their personal life, their friends, their family. What did you hope would come out of it for people that would get their hands on it and read it, in addition to the incredible work that you and your family have done here in Winnipeg to hopefully help people dealing with addiction?
I guess I hope the essential message of the book would be that addiction knows no boundaries, no socioeconomic boundaries. Ann and I always said that if this could happen to us, it could happen to anyone. And we always saw ourselves as just an ordinary family. Home in the south end of Winnipeg, 2 kids, so that, no boundaries from addiction or for addiction. It can come for anyone at any time. But if you want recovery, it should be possible for you to get treatment and get your health back again. So that's the essential message of the book, I hope.
The journey that everyone goes through dealing with this, especially when you lose a loved one, can be incredibly painful. What was it like going through this and working with the co-author to put this together? Was it cathartic in some ways, or was it painful?
It was not cathartic in the least. If you consider cathartic to be a psychological release with a lot of emotion, not even close. It's very difficult to relive Bruce's journey the last 4 or 5 years in particular for the written word. And even more difficult to write the chapter about Anne's passing. But, we got through it. Previously, if I was to think of something that Bruce had done, an episode in his life, I would think about it in isolation and maybe just go back to whatever it was I was doing. This book lays everything out in chronological order. And as a result, even though I wrote it, it's a very hard read for me. right now, if I was to pick up the book and rifle through it, I'd probably come to a section and I'd say to myself, I can't read that right now. It's too emotional. So it's a difficult read for me, but I hope it won't be for those who buy it. I hope they'll be able to understand what we went through, and that and they'll get the message that addiction can come for anyone. You don't have to shake a family tree too hard to get an addict or an alcoholic to fall out. There's a good chance addiction is somewhere in your family tree. It might not be in your house, could be somewhere in your family tree though. So that's why I hope this book will resonate with a lot of readers.
And they're, obviously, you have, this happened years ago, and the recovery center has been established and the book is coming out. But, there's a lot of people that are dealing with this right now, or maybe in the early stages of trying to tackle this sort of problem in their family. I mean, whether it be from yourself or what they'll get out of the book. I mean, what is the message to those people, Scott, that can hopefully benefit from spending some time with the release?
Well, I guess the message for them, if they're dealing with this in their family, and I know a lot of people who buy the book are, the message should be that recovery is possible, and that even though the worst possible thing happened to our family, it doesn't have to happen to yours, and that recovery, a life free of drugs and alcohol, is possible, and its treatment is available at the Bruce Oake Recovery Center.
I'm sure most of our listeners have heard about the Bruce Oake Recovery Center. If you could, for a minute, tell us about the idea for that, why it was so important, and the legacy that that facility that bears your son's name will hopefully have on our community here in Winnipeg.
First thing you see when you enter the Bruce Oake Recovery Center, on your immediate left in the entryway, is Bruce's urn in a beautiful glass case. He's there because that's his final resting place, because that's his legacy. But there's also a message in that to all the guys who go through Bruce Oake. They see him every day, and the message would be, do the work, or that could be you. So when you lose a child, you have choices. I guess one would be to resign yourself to your grief and carry on as best you can. But our choice was to give voice to our grief and try to bring the beautiful concept of long-term treatment at no cost to Winnipeg and to Manitoba, because Bruce had the best year of his addicted life at a treatment center, long-term treatment center in Calgary called Simon House. He stayed for a year first time, and we always believed if he'd stayed for 2, he'd still be alive. So the Bruce Oake Recovery Center offers 2 cornerstones. One is long-term treatment. Anyone who graduates from the 16-week in-residence program at Bruce Oake has a counselor for life. And the second cornerstone is no one's turned away because they can't afford to pay. Money is often the single greatest barrier to recovery, and we're pleased and proud to say that we've removed that. Long-term treatment at no cost is a game changer in the world of recovery.
You dealt with some roadblocks in putting establishing the center. Why do you think those were, and how did you overcome them?
Whenever you're trying to establish a recovery center in the middle of a residential neighborhood, you have to expect pushback, because people don't know what they don't know, and mostly what they don't know is there is a massive difference between active addiction and recovery. Active addiction is ugly. It usually revolves around drug-seeking behavior. Our family knows better than anyone, or as well as anyone, how ugly it can be. But recovery, see, at the other end of the spectrum, it's a beautiful thing, because those focused on it are focused on one thing, and that's their sobriety. So we worked hard to get that message through with a dignified educational campaign that included 4 or 5 public information sessions. And I think we were able to convince most people in the neighborhood that they had nothing to fear from the men of the Bruce Oake Recovery Center, and that they would be good neighbors. And that is exactly how it's turned out, to the extent that some people who were the most vociferous opponents of the establishment of the Bruce Oake Recovery Center, the Crestview area, have now endorsed the place, and some even volunteer there. So people have come to realize that they do have nothing to fear from the men of Bruce Oake, and that they are good neighbors. And we always knew that would happen. It just took a bit of work to get the message through.
How gratifying is it to you, at this point, with everything you've been through and what you've lost, to see the difference that the Bruce Oake Recovery Center is making right now in Winnipeg in the lives of some men that desperately need it?
Well, it's gratifying to me, but I should point out that I have nothing whatsoever to do with running the Bruce Oake Recovery Center. I'd like to say that, I know what I don't know. And if I was to inject myself into the process of running the place, it'd probably be closed in 2 weeks, 3 at the most. The expertise of running the recovery center is in the hands of our executive director, Greg Kylo, our program director, Kyle Gertzen, operations director, Scott Robinson. These guys are well schooled in the area of recovery, and they're all in recovery. So yeah, gratifying for me, but I don't take a lot of credit for it because it's their work that's made the place a success. And what really makes the Bruce Oake Recovery Center a success is the men who go there, who do the work to get their lives back. Because if they didn't do that, they didn't put in the work, and we didn't have a success rate of 57%, there'd be nothing but complaints and no plaudits. So I'm well aware of that.
I read a passage in Steve Simmons' article about you and the release of the book and this journey about walking in and tapping the urn. What is it like for you when you go into the Bruce Oake Recovery Center now?
The Bruce Oake Recovery Center is a beautiful place, and as soon as you walk in, and especially on days of ceremonies of gratitude, those are graduation days when groups have completed the 16-week in residence program, and there's a celebration in the gymnasium. On those days in particular, but all days when you walk into the recovery center, you can feel the vibe, just a beautiful vibe. It's a spirit of hope, of love, and of kindness. And I go there frequently to have lunch with the guys, meet them in the weight room, or I might work out with them, whatever, hear their stories if they want to tell them. But that's the extent of my involvement. I'm kind of an ambassador, I guess, for Bruce Oake, or pardon me, or you might say just the pretty face. But I'm happy to go there on a regular basis, as many days as I possibly can, and feel that vibe. Yeah, it's uplifting.
Scott Oake is with us. The new book, For the Love of a Son, is out right now. Everywhere you get books. McNally Robinson had a big event last night. You can pick it up there. Scott, you mentioned that the pretty face. You for so long have been synonymous with Hockey Night in Canada. Cracking jokes and being part of it. With the loss that you've had and everything that we'll read out in the book, how important has been the opportunity to get away, to be involved in these productions, and to continue working. How has that helped you go deal with everything that you've been through outside of work?
Well, when Bruce died, I took 1 week off and I went right back to work because I thought was going to be the best thing for me, and it was. I love my career. I'm proud of it, and I wouldn't say it's a distraction. It's just part of my life, and Bruce's passing was too. And you do your best to manage both things. As I always say, it's like, Darcy describes it best. Darcy says it's like, this is with respect to Bruce's passing, loss of his brother. It's like you have a 10-pound brick in your pocket, and some days it's heavier than others, but it's always there. So there's that. I say in the acknowledgments of the book, when grief could get the better of you, especially if you lose your wife and your son. And I can't say that I've risen above it, but I carry on. I don't think either Bruce or Anne would expect me to just stop and wallow in my grief. And I know that they both would be proud to know that we have taken tragedy and turned it into a degree of hope.
For such an immensely personal and at times painful topic, the process of putting this together, I'm sure wasn't easy. Tell us about the relationship with Michael Hingston and how you guys worked together to put this. Reading what Steve had to say, it was probably a little different than many other books have been put together.
Well, Michael is an accomplished author himself. He's written a couple of books, and he's ghost-written a number of books. I think he ghost wrote Harner Ryan Singh's book. I'd never met him, and we were put together by the book agent and the publisher, Simon & Schuster. Book agent's Brian Wood, by the way. And it was a perfect relationship. Again, as I say in the acknowledgments of the book, I basically spoke gibberish to Michael for, I guess, probably 80 hours. And he took my streams of consciousness and was able to put them into English and to make it sound like me. course, the easiest way to make anything sound like me is to put a bunch of F sharps in there, and there are a few. there are a few in the book. He has done a wonderful job of making it sound like me telling Bruce's story and the story of the Recovery Center and the story to come, which is the Oake Family Recovery Center. I've had a number of people tell me that they've read the book and they feel like I'm talking to them. So that's a high compliment for Michael. You know, I'm a master at being asked a question, and about 4 minutes later, I'll go, "What was the question again?" You know, and I could imagine Michael, when he only came here once. We were together once for 3 days, and we wrote a couple of chapters then, but most of it was done over the phone. And I could imagine Michael hearing me ramble on at some point with his head in his hands going, "What have I done here? How am I ever going to make any sense out of this?" But he did a beautiful job, and I'm in his debt.
I know we're essentially the book has just been released in the past 48 hours or so. Have you had early reaction from folks, or has it been more people getting the book and saying how much they're looking forward to the message and hearing the story?
Well, I know that we sold 200 on Monday night when we had kind of a private launch event at the Recovery Center. Peter Mansbridge was there for that. I think you mentioned that earlier. So that was a good start. And then last night at McNally Robinson, the place was jammed, and we sold another 200. The publicist from Simon & Schuster sent me an email yesterday before the McNally event to say the book was already number 40 on Amazon. I don't know what that means, but I think it's against every book probably in the country, or maybe the continent. I don't know. I could be wrong on this, but I've had it explained to me that that's very good. So our goal is to get to number 39.
Let's get this thing to be a bestseller, folks. It is available right now, obviously, at Amazon. If you'd like to shop local, pop by the McNally Robinson. They'll have copies there for you. It is For the Love of a Son, a memoir of addiction, love, and hope. Scott, thank you very much for doing this. Normally when we're on this program, we're kind of yucking it up and we're talking about the hockey team and everything else that's going on. Hopefully we can do this some other day, but today a much more important topic. And congratulations on it and all the work you've done on this, especially right here in our community of Winnipeg. Continued success to you, and all the best moving forward with the book and yourself. Thanks so much for doing this.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Andrew. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks again for Scott Oake jumping on. Really nice comments in the chat from that. Appreciate it, everybody. And if you want to pop by McNally or check out on Amazon, that is out right now, and I think it'll be good and important read for so many, considering how addiction touches so many. We've got a hilarious clip from Patrick Laine talking about Dustin Byfuglien and Dustin Byfuglien's retirement from the Chicklets boys. We'll play that at the end, but let's see what we got cooking tonight in the National Hockey League and our Coolbet lines. Just 4 games tonight in the NHL. The Boston Bruins are plus 182 underdogs in New Jersey. Jersey has not been playing well lately. Jersey minus 217 favorites at home. The Blue Jackets are in TO to take on the Leafs. Hildeby in net for Toronto. Columbus plus 170, Leafs minus 200. The Panthers won last night against the Ducks. They're going back-to-back in LA against the Kings. Panthers minus 101, Kings minus 116. And then the Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Avalanche. No Nichushkin on the Colorado side, no Lowry on the Winnipeg side. Winnipeg plus 103, Avalanche minus 122. Now, I did put together a WST parlay tonight, and we're going to be looking to see if maybe the power play top line can get going. Everyone's got to chip in without Adam Lowry in the lineup. So, for the Jets to win, how about we get Connor, Scheifele, Vilardi, and Morrissey all to record a point, and the Jets to win. Nice little boost up to plus 525 for that. So don't need anyone to get goals or assists. Points, at least 1 point for Connor, Scheifele, Vilardi, Morrissey, and Jets to win, plus 525. That's the Winnipeg Sports Talk parlay. And We also do have a lock shop parlay, and we swung for the fences tonight. We didn't include the Jet game in this one. We were going through. Boston's won 8 of the last 10 against New Jersey. And New Jersey, as we mentioned, has been struggling. So we're going to take the Bruins on the road. We're taking the over 6.5 goals between the Leafs and the Blue Jackets. I'm going to take the Kings at home on the money line to the Panthers, who played last night. Massive boost on this one. It's plus 902 when you put it in, plus 1035 right now. There's some other great promos tonight as well, or I should say exclusives in the combo cards. The Leafs, the super boost tonight is Marner to get a point and Kyle Connor to get a point. Plus 110 is boosted to. There's a Canuck combo. You got the shots, the stars and snipes. So it's all up there. And hey, for you WWE fans like myself, Royal Rumble odds are up. So go into the the sports, go all the way down to WWE, and if you want to get in, John Cena, can't see me, favorite, minus 125 to win the Royal Rumble. CM Punk plus 200, and then the rest of the guys they're available as well. So there you have the Coolbet lines for tonight. Use the promo code WST if you haven't played there before for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Great show today. Really enjoyed Kieron Walton. Murat was phenomenal, and it was just a pleasure to have Scott Oake on the program. But Remis, let's finish off with a bit of a laugh. So Patrick Laine was on Spittin' Chicklets with Biz and Wit, and they asked him about Dustin Byfuglien and just being teammates with Buff when he came in as a rookie, and Laine told quite the story of finding out that Buff was hanging him up. Here's how it sounded on Spittin' Chicklets this week.
When he retired, could you see that coming, or was it as shocking to you as it was to so many others?
I was there. We had, still have the skates before camp. And I think he was doing treatment or something. They were saying, hey, Buff, be here tomorrow at 9 or something. And he's like, no, I won't come back. And they're like, okay, we'll see you tomorrow. And then I haven't seen him after that.
You haven't seen him since?
Yeah.
Oh, could he light up a room when he walked in the room where was he just this presence?
Yeah, no, I think he was kind of in his own bubble, minding his own business. You could definitely sense when he walks in and the floor is shaking when he's walking in. You can't miss it.
The legend of Buff continues. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., Reem. Yeah, I know. I don't think I'll be there. That's the last time Patrick Laine ever saw Dustin Byfuglien.
I want to laugh and be like, haha, that's such a funny way to retire. You're going, but he really, we're a couple years removed, so I think you can kind of laugh Buff, such a unique individual. There's not many like him. On the ice, he was incredible, but he really screwed the team by doing that. Really just screwed them very hard right before training camp. Could have just had surgery and came out. I get he didn't want to play. That's his choice. But the way that it was handled, totally
not ideal.
Not ideal. But he gave so many memories. He's a unique guy. We kind of he does things his own way, and the memories that he gave you on the ice are unlike anyone else. He did things on the ice that no one else could do. He was an amazing player, and not every player, not any person is going to walk away from $14 million or however much he had left on his contract. So you kind of have to respect that, Huss. If a guy's just going to be like, nah, I'm just not going to play. I'm just not going to play the last 2 years. I don't think that anyone would do that. So you kind of got to respect it, I guess, right?
Yeah, listen, it was
right.
I don't even know what to say, folks. Our patience is being very tested. First, it was me. Now it went out twice on the other end of the WST. So, Belle, let's talk about terrible internet that is going out throughout our shows. If you have any suggestions, if you work there, if you're a tech guy, reach out. I mean, I don't even know what to say at this point. But it is really screwing things up for us right now. So, we'll see. Anyways, fun little laugh from Line A at the end of the show. Big thanks to, if you missed the Kieron Walton interview, if you got here late, really, really impressive. We'll probably post that. And certainly, I mean, the stuff with Murat today was just phenomenal. Check out his entire piece in The Athletic. Well worth your subscription dollar. And again, thanks to both The Athletic and the Free Press for being with the team on the road. And certainly Murat for his time from Denver tonight. 8:30 puck drop, a little late one. Tomorrow on the program. Is Ken coming on tomorrow?
No, Ken is in Arizona, so he requested Friday. So Brandon is on tomorrow. Greg Wyshynski from ESPN, lots to talk about. I think he wants to talk about nachos.
Nachos, yes, the Nacho Gate from the Corey Perry goal. And for all of you that have been requesting it, guess who's back tomorrow to get ready for the Chiefs and the Bills? None other than Bills Mafia Hardo, Gabe Morency. We will have a fun Chiefs-Bills conversation that could get crazy when Gabe joins us tomorrow on the program. So,
do we need to have the censor beep for him, like the drop button?
Listen, the internet better not go out during that. I will tell you that. That is going to be so much fun. So, anyways, let's have some fun tonight. Good luck to the Jets. Maybe we can get a dub and cash a WST parlay. That would be very nice. One thing I know, though, for sure, that we'll be back. Hopefully our internet on both sides will work, and we'll be able to get through a show. But appreciate your patience to all of you, and certainly appreciate all of our guests today. Scott Oake, Kieron Walton, Murat Atesh, and, of course, a big thanks to all the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. We will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, 1 p.m. live on YouTube, and immediately after the show in your podcast feed. That's going to do it for us today. Stay warm. We'll see you tomorrow on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.